This is the problem with the fake left. Joe Biden is fake left. These intersectionals are fake left. Joe Biden says he will pick a woman for vice president. No, we don't think you actually care. We think you're doing the same thing that other movies and video games have done. The idea being, if we just make the character female and shoehorn it in, it will be great and people will want it. Joe Biden, here's my advice. Pick a vice president that you think would do a good job. You don't need to come out and say, I'm going to pick a woman. You can say, if the vice president is a woman, that would be a great thing. I'm certainly not going to pick a VP because they're women, but it just so happens there is a short list and some of them happen to be females. If that ends up happening, well, then that's what we'll choose. Let's be real. One of the best things Joe Biden could probably do is try and get Warren to be his VP. Now, I don't think he's going to win anyway. But Warren was in for a while, and she's got a decent base. Bernie Sanders might go for Warren as well. And Bernie said something a bit lighter where he said he will likely do the same thing. But I'll tell you what, man. This is no different from watching a movie where they gender swap or race swap a character to try and pander to you. I don't believe they legitimately care about the rights of women or breaking the glass ceiling. They're just pandering up for woke points. But guess what? We've seen it over and over again in this election. Get woke, go broke. Every single time one of these Democratic candidates tries to get woke, they drop in the polls. Well, right now, Joe Biden's skyrocketing. He's very likely going to be the nominee. But let's read this story from Vox, who I'm sure is extremely excited that Joe Biden is going to arbitrarily start. The joke I saw on Twitter was that Biden's basically starting with the private parts of an individual and then working up from there to choose his VP instead of thinking about the brain of the individual. Come on. We got a couple females who made it really, really far in this race who would make excellent VPs. You don't need to pander. I mean, whatever. Let's read this. Joe Biden says he will pick a woman for president. Bernie Sanders indicated he would likely do so too, but wasn't as certain. Now, Bernie Sanders should have said the same thing I just mentioned. We got a list. We're looking at some of these people. There's some great contenders. Maybe it'll be a woman. When faced with a question about how his administration would promote women's rights, Biden indicated that part of his efforts would include the selection of vice president. If I'm elected president, my cabinet, my administration will look like the country, and I commit that I will, in fact, appoint a woman to be vice president. Bernie Sanders also signaled that he would likely select a woman, but did not do so with the same certainty. In all likelihood, I will, he said. To me, it's not just nominating a woman. It's making sure that we have a progressive woman and that there are progressive women out there. The statement marks the first time that Biden has explicitly said his VP pick will be a woman, and it's a notable announcement as he and Sanders continue to duke it out for the nomination. Given both Biden's and Sanders' respective ages, the focus on their vice presidential selections have been even more heightened than it has been for candidates in the past. This past cycle, there have also been many predictions about how the most diverse Democratic field the party has ever seen, which included 6 women, has since been winnowed to 2 white men in their late 70s. I'll give a shout out to all the people who complain when I mention Bernie as white. They remind me that Bernie is in fact Jewish. Sure. Biden's decision to choose a woman guarantees there will be a woman on the Democratic ticket and ensures at least some representation via this choice. There have been several names floated as possible running mates for Biden, including former 2020 candidate Kamala Harris, as well as Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams. As The Cut reported earlier this month, there are a number of Democratic women, including Senator Maggie Hassan and former Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, who have been mentioned by Biden too. There's never been a woman president or vice president in U.S. history. And if Biden wins the nomination, his running mate would only mark the 4th woman ever to be on the ticket. Now, here's my favorite joke before we get into the next bit of data here on the vice presidential, on the VP pick. It's that Joe Biden will choose Hillary Clinton, and then Joe Biden will have a horrible accident befall him. No, I don't think he's going to choose Hillary Clinton. That would be ridiculous. And if he did, I would be absolutely shocked. I don't want to say it's impossible, but the Democratic Party is over Hillary. But then, you get the joke that he'd pick Hillary and then him being 77. There was a thing that happened a few months ago where apparently Joe Biden had said he would only run for 1 term. He denied it, I guess, but people were claiming he was going to run for 1 term and then leave just to get rid of Trump. But then Trump could run again if he wanted to. I mean, he'd be really old, but he'd be basically as old as Biden is now. So no, that literally makes no sense. But here's what I'll show you. So it seems, according to a founder of Daily Kos, Marcos Moulitsas, hearing insider rumors that Amy Klobuchar is frontrunner for Biden VP pick. If that were to happen, it would be Tim Kaine 2.0, doing nothing to unify the party, bringing no new demographics to the ticket. It would be once again a disaster. Yeah, I think I agree with him. Look, man, I don't expect to actually vote for any of these, for Biden or Bernie. Once again, I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't expect to vote for Biden or Bernie, but I do think it's fair to say the best shot Joe Biden's going to have is picking Elizabeth Warren. But I don't care all that much about who he does pick. I want to show you a couple bits of data and then talk about the get woke, go broke aspect of what the presidency is. So what we're seeing now is the RCP average. I haven't shown it to you in a week or so, and I thought I'd bring it back up. Joe Biden is absolutely slaying it in the national polls, jumping up to 55.4, and Bernie Sanders has dropped from 36 to 33.9. So Joe Biden is absolutely skyrocketing. Now, I'd like to point out there is still a woman in the race who's polling better than ever. I think better than ever. Tulsi Gabbard. Gabbard is polled consistently in the national polls around, I think, like the high 1%. Tulsi is now at 3%. So no, I don't think she's going to win. No, I don't think she's an actual contender, but she's staying in the race for some time. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'll be honest. You got Bernie, who just had a heart attack. He's 78. Joe Biden, 77. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard staying in the race. I mean, there's a lottery tickets chance that somehow she becomes the nominee. But I think it's a closed race. I don't know if I want to trust 538. This is a challenge why I'm a little hesitant. Look at 538 from February 3rd. It was a roller coaster of Biden, then no one contested. 538 doesn't seem to know what's going on in the first place, but they're saying it's a greater than 99% chance that Joe Biden wins the nomination. Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard now have an equal chance, less than 1 in 100, of becoming the president. But let's go to the big complaint that everyone has about the announcement from Joe Biden and to a lesser extent Bernie Sanders about saying that they're just going to choose a woman because she's a woman. This is the problem, as I mentioned earlier, that we've seen over and over again with the woke left. They claim to support certain things, but in the end, they always end up being the bigots or being the representation of what they say is the problem. How can you go out and claim that cis white men are the problem, but then actively support two frontrunners who are cis white men, right? I think it's fair to point out the split actually comes down to Bernie and Biden. Biden is going to be supported by the moderates in this country who probably don't care that he's going to choose a woman, which is the problem we see with all of these movies and TV shows. Check it out. I've said it a million times. Wonder Woman, awesome. Let's see some new movies to come out, and I assume they'll be great regardless of who the character is. Into the Spider-Verse, we got the new Black Widow movie coming up. Guess what? Into the Spider-Verse, diversity in the movie. Black Widow, female-led character. Nobody cares. I mean, look, there's some people who are probably cheering, saying, yeah, we're getting diversity, but that's diversity done right. Taking a look at Joe Biden's base, you have to wonder why he would want to do this. Moderates don't care about this stuff. They don't care about woke progressive pandering. They care about effectiveness. And that's why people are walking away from the Democratic Party, because of things like this. Joe Biden is never going to convince these woke lunatics that he's the right choice simply because he chose a woman. It's just not going to happen. Let's be real for a second. These woke leftists who claim they hate cis white men are still willing to support Bernie Sanders, a cis white man, regardless of what they claim to believe or what they think is right. So for Joe Biden to think he's going to be able to pander to them, nah. Bernie Sanders is a socialist who's proposing socialist rhetoric and policy. And as much as these people might not like him, they think he is a pathway towards socialism or communism or whatever far left they want. Many of the more progressives, less, they're decently left people, view him as just the real populist choice, not Biden. Biden is the corporatist candidate. He's being supported by people who I view as not really paying attention or knowing what's going on. So he's going to try and pander by saying no deportations, by saying he's bringing on a woman. Bro, who are you trying to convince? Because these activists don't like you and will never like you. You won't bend the knee, so they're not going to choose you. Joe Biden needs to get away from the get woke, go broke. I'll tell you what, Why do you think it is that so many of these candidates who have tried this have failed? It's because it's not about what makes sense. You're being tricked by the Twitter bubble and social media. And you know what? Biden is walking right into that trap. So Bernie, surprisingly, wouldn't even give a definitive answer on whether or not he would choose a woman. He said it was likely. And yet he still maintains support. Pay attention, man. I'll be honest. I think Bernie is getting support from some progressives who hate Trump, who are active, know what's going on, and, are in good faith to a certain degree. Someone once brought up, and I think it was Kyle Kalinske who said this, they brought up, why is it that the Democrats or these leftists will claim to want diversity, but will still end up supporting a old white man, Bernie, over the other female candidates? And I think it was Kyle, somebody said this, that maybe it should be, maybe now you'll realize policy is more important than identity to many of these progressives. I believe that is absolutely fair to say, in which case you can now see why this is a huge mistake for someone like Biden to make. Pandering, pathetic, woke BS sends nothing to no one. So, hey, man, you reap what you sow. For some reason, they think they can still court these people. But I'll tell you what, man, whatever. I'm out. You're not getting me. Stick around. I got a couple more segments one more segment in just a few minutes, and I will see you all shortly.